This is the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, and get ready to de-stress with today's guest, Peggy Sealfon.
Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast on SelenaKnight.com. Stay ahead of the competition by opening your doors to business experts so you can learn, grow, and be inspired. Passionate about bringing business strategies to independent retailers, please welcome your host, Selena Knight.
Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where we are going to wash all of your cares away. Okay, maybe not quite, but as this episode goes live, I have to say I'm feeling a little bit stressed, a little bit under the pump. We have a bunch of our next round of live events coming up in about 10 days' time. I'm flying back to the US to hold some events and to go to not one, but two marketing conferences. And Lana goes back to school tomorrow. Oh, did I mention that tomorrow I have to fly from Sydney to Queensland to meet a new client? So as you can imagine, I'm currently juggling a lot of balls. But here's the thing. I know that you are too. I know that I am not the only person who is listening to this podcast and who is being a mum or a dad or a brother or a sister or aunt or an uncle, being there for somebody else, as well as running a business, trying to make time for yourself, as well as walk the dog, make sure the school lunches are packed, all the things that are going on in our lives. And in today's society, we all have a lot going on. And it is really easy to fall under the pressure of being stressed. Now, a little bit of stress is a good thing, but life can just throw so much at us that if you're having a day like I am today, where the tech has gone wrong, it's kind of to be expected that you are going to feel stressed. You're going to feel pressured and under the pump and a little short with everybody because you're basically just trying to get through the day. Now, whether you are having a fabulous day today or you're having a not so great day, I think you are really going to enjoy today's episode with Peggy Sealfon, because she is going to give you some great life hacks on how to de-stress. Plus, she has this awesome 3 minutes to de-stress download that she is going to share with you. And I have to admit, today I just popped that in and listened to it just for those 3 minutes. And it made the world of difference. So if you're feeling a little bit on edge, a little bit tense, a little bit cranky with everybody around you, then you are going to love today's episode. And just a quick reminder before we jump in that if you would love to come to one of my live events where I show you how to get customers on autopilot and give you some bonus Facebook ads training, head over to SelenaKnight.com/events. We've finally put all of the events all around the world on the one page. So pop over to SelenaKnight.com/events and see when your next live event is coming to your town. Now let's jump into today's episode. Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Everybody talks about goal setting in the beginning of a new year. But here on the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, we've deliberately moved away from goal setting because I know that you can find that just about anywhere. So we're focusing on other ways that you can ready yourself for 2019. And today I've brought on Peggy, who's a personal development coach. She's also an author and a motivational speaker. And probably best of all, she's an internationally recognized expert on dealing with stress and anxiety. Peggy is going to be talking to us about setting an intention and how you can kind of cope with the stress that the new year brings and get yourself ready to have a fabulous, fantastic 2019. So welcome to the show, Peggy.
Thank you so much, Selena. I'm so delighted to be here with you.
Now, I'm told that you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur and you've even had retail stores. So tell us a little bit about that.
I did. I actually had this great concept years ago for a shop featuring hydroponic plants because I had a black thumb and I thought this would give me a green thumb, and it was great. And I combined it with a European floral shop. And I had a couple of stores. So I really have an intimate sense of retail and what it's all about and the stress that goes with it.
Oh,
and
yes.
Actually, I'll tell you a quick story because it was really awakening for me to realize the stress that we experience, especially in that retail environment. And I was definitely overwhelmed and overloaded. And suddenly I literally felt my heart was crashing through my chest and I was having a heart attack. And I was 35. And so I called my local doctor and I had my assistant drive me over, and the doctor sat me down and said, "Why do you think you're having a heart attack?" And I said, "Well, I have this terrible pain in my chest." I was having a panic attack, but
Yep.
I had no idea what a panic attack was at that time. And of course, now I help people overcome anxiety, stress, panic attacks, and all the things that hold us back from really performing at our peak.
And what do you think brought that on?
I think it was not having the tools that I've now trained in and learned to cope with it. I think we don't pay attention to ourselves. We don't pay attention to what we're experiencing. We may have difficult customers. We may have orders that came in incorrectly. We may have trouble paying our bills at times. And all of that, just is a perfect storm to create a load on our minds and bodies that then produces these aberrations. And it really undermines our ability to think clearly, to focus, to make good decisions. And we shut down, and it's certainly not productive.
It's certainly not. And I have to say, I see it so often. I do live workshops several times a year, and without fail, at least one person will break down in tears because they realize that because they're being given the tools on the day, because we do implementation, we do strategy and implementation, I think it just comes crashing down that actually some of these things are really simple. The stuff I teach is not really difficult, but nobody's ever shown it to them before. No one's ever said, actually, if you put these 3 or 4 things in place and it's automated, you can grow your business for not a lot of money and you can, scale a lot. But I don't know, I think that a lot of the blame can be laid on this word hustle, and listeners will know that I hate the word hustle. It drives me insane because the connotation it has with it these days is, driving yourself into the ground, working to move to that next step. But in actual fact, for those of us who have been in business and been quite successful, the older you get, the easier it is to realize that actually the simpler your business is and almost the less that you work, not less that you work, because I think if you are intentional about the way that you work, you don't need to work 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day. If you're very smart about it and you stop working for the sake of working, a lot of that stress can actually get lifted.
Absolutely. And it's also truly about being mindful about your choices. And if you're working to get somewhere or something, you're focused on some future instead of really being in the journey, being in the present, being mindful about choices that you're making right now. I think too often we defer our happiness, we defer our success to some future point when some magical something happens. We have a certain amount of money in our bank account or the bigger house or the bigger car. And it actually is not a recipe for happiness. Those things are just external accoutrements that may be nice to have. But when we get so hyper-focused on achieving those kinds of end results, again, we're always just looking to a future point instead of really being in the now.
And I will put 2 hands up if you're watching the video, because I am very guilty of that. I spent probably it's only in probably the last 5 years that I have become less focused on my turnover versus how I live my life. And not to say that your turnover is not important, because at the end of the day, you have a business to provide for you. You don't have a business to be stressed out all the time, to be causing you to have panic attacks. If you wanted to do something that high stress, you would go and be a lawyer or something and get paid commensurate. But instead, I know so many independent retailers who aren't getting paid. Sometimes they don't pay themselves a wage, but they're putting all of this stress and burden on themselves. And I feel like saying you've got 2 choices here. 1, wise up and become a CEO of your business, or 2, go and get a job, because all you've got is the really crappy parts of a job. You're not getting the money and the benefits that come with it.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of what I teach my clients and corporate groups is really that work-life balance and really making choices to take care of yourself, to recognize that what you're doing, hopefully the business that you've chosen to be in and to be the CEO of, is something you are really passionate about and you love. So hang on to that part of what's really driving you, that inner passion. That's where you really draw the most success from, by really focusing in on that and balancing other things that are important in your life. There are some basic needs that we have as human beings, and it's really important to pay attention to them. Relationships are important. Your own health and well-being, taking time for yourself to just restore and reboot and revitalize. And when we're running businesses, we tend to forget about those things. No, I have to stay focused. I can't give up that time.
Yeah.
And what I've taught people is that by taking that time out, actually for corporate groups, I call it a productivity pause. Just taking a short break actually expands time and allows you to be more effective, more efficient, and actually perform better.
Yeah. And so you probably would say on the same train of thought that I am, that this whole concept of hustle, just, work extra hours, doesn't actually get you better productivity, and it doesn't necessarily make you more money.
No, it actually undermines your productivity. Putting in the hours is not the key. Being effective and actually making better decisions is more important. And one of the things we've discovered just through my trainings in neurosciences is that we really need to take that little time out every 90 minutes, 2 hours, and just step away from whatever we're doing and take a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and just do some deep breathing and just take a break, because we need those moments to really refresh and be able to see things more expansively. Because when we drill down and stay so focused on a task, we get lost to the point where we get stressed and we lose time, and now we're feeling more anxious and panicked because we haven't gotten done what we wanted, rather than stepping back. And when you see it more freshly, you can really prioritize everything better and more clearly.
And we've all been in that situation where, you're really stuck on something, and then you have to, you have to take the dog for a walk, or, you have to go and cook dinner, or you have to do something that's, an important thing. And then you realize while you're cooking dinner or while you're walking the dog, the answer just comes to you, and you're like, and it's because you aren't focused on it, and your brain is working in the background, and it's actively trying to give you the answers. So I love that concept. Tell us how we could do that for people who are working physically in a store, because we have e-commerce store owners and physical store owners. For people who are working in a store and maybe they're working on their own, what would you suggest they do just to get that 2 minutes every 90 minutes?
It's a pick-me-up, right? So there's a lot of different things that one could choose, and it's good to choose something that you'll do regularly and that you're comfortable with. One of the easiest things that I like to offer is a 3-minute to de-stress audio that you can listen to. Take a pause. It's deep breathing, closing your eyes and just focusing in and just closing out everything. You sort of drop into the gaps between your thoughts for just a few minutes. And by doing that, it literally rests your brain, restores your body, and the deep breathing is oxygenating, so it actually helps you function better. Other things that you can do are things like just getting up and taking a 5-minute walk, or just doing some stretching. The other thing that actually signals your nervous system to calm down is just take a big sigh or yawn. And that actually can quiet your mind and your body. But the thing is, it's really about training yourself to do that. We're not in the habit of doing that, so we default to the stressful approach and the hustle. Yeah. And so by training yourself, what I actually recommend to my clients is they set their watches or their smartphones on a couple of times a day, maybe mid-morning, mid-afternoon, and it's 3 minutes for yourself. No matter what you're doing, you stop for 3 minutes, you take a little break. So I'd love to offer your viewers free audio at 3minutes2destress.com, and they can download it and practice, use it.
Oh, that's so generous. Thank you for that. We'll make sure we pop a link to it. So 3minutes2destress.com.
Right.
Awesome.
Simple,
thank you.
Very simple solution.
Yeah, it's 3 minutes, right? Everybody here has 3 minutes when nobody walks in the door.
Or you take 3 minutes.
Or you take 3 minutes. That's 100% correct. Now, you said a little bit earlier, you mentioned this concept of work-life balance. And I struggle with that concept because as an independent business owner, they're kind of merged together. And as we speak, I'm sitting in my office, which is downstairs. It is the summer holidays here in Australia. So my daughter is upstairs playing the Xbox and my husband is out the back cleaning up the back deck for our a belated Christmas lunch with the family. So, I think I'm lucky enough to be able to walk downstairs to my office. But I do find that for a lot of independent business owners, there's kind of no distinction between work and life. Like it all just kind of merges into one, which I think can be very overwhelming. It can mean it's almost impossible to switch off. And as a result, I think a lot of people go, 'cause we're talking this episode about, getting ready for the new year. I think a lot of people go through the hustle of Christmas, the stress, not only the work stress, but the family stress, all that kind of stuff. And they don't actually pause and take time to get ready for 2019. So I'd love it if we could talk about two things. The first one is this concept of work-life balance. Is it even possible? And the other one, it's what? It is possible?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you about that. And then my second question, because I think they're going to tie in together, which is why I'm putting them together, is how can we move forward in 2019 by instead of making goals, which can be difficult to achieve or difficult to work to, or a lot of times they get pulled out of our butt, they're just made up numbers, maybe putting an intention in place rather than the goal setting. And I feel like the two of those might join in together. So the first question, just to repeat, was work-life balance. And the second question was, are we going to be better off setting an intention for 2019, or are we better off making goals?
So the first, work-life balance, is absolutely achievable. It really starts with you being mindful and deciding what are your priorities. Do you, at the end of 10 years, want to have this incredible, successful business, but not know your children or your husband or your wife, a guy listening? Or do you want to have a real healthy lifestyle? If we just focus on work and success, whatever that means, we are isolating some of the very human aspects that are really important for our well-being, for our health, for mental health, physical health, and for this wonderful balance. So it's really about choices and prioritizing. And I love the idea of setting intentions for the new year rather than goals, because goals tend to be expectations, and expectations are frustrations waiting to happen. So a goal actually tends to create stress. Let's say, for instance, after the holidays, right? Here we are in January, and you gained a lot of weight eating all of that food and drinking and, not really exercising enough because we were partying and visiting friends and family. So let's say you start the new year with this idea that my goal is to lose 10 pounds in the next 6 weeks. And what happens at the end of 6 weeks when you haven't lost the 6 pounds? I'm just no good. I feel terrible. This is awful.
I'm a failure.
I feel sluggish. Right, I'm a failure. So how can I be successful in my business when I can't even be successful in taking care of myself and staying with these goals? So a better approach, just to kind of show you the way an intention might work, and this would be more a short-term intention, and I'll get into a different type of intention in a moment, but would be, I'm eating healthfully and I'm feeling really good by the choices I'm making in what I'm eating. So you're putting it in the present. It's starting right now. It's not starting, well, next week I'll go on a diet. I don't believe in diets. I believe in really learning a healthy way of eating. I actually do a free 7-day food boot camp that's a food strategy for just making healthier choices and taking little steps, because each little step accumulates and leads to a different approach. So that would be a short-term intention that you might establish. However, for your whole life, you want to have more of a mission statement. We do mission statements for our businesses. We need to do it for where we are and to align with who we are and how we want to show up in the world and how we want to give back, whether it's to our family, to our community, to our business, whatever it is, we need to move into that alignment. And so a more global intention is, as I say, more like a mission statement. And it's always said in the present. So I'm connected to my family and friends, and I'm loving the business that I'm working in, might be more of an overall intention. I like to use more proactive types of words. I'm passionate. I try to actually focus more in on who you are inside, and that everything you choose to do in your life is in alignment with who you are. So I have some techniques that are too long to go into at this point, but if you can just spend some time being quiet and looking within yourself and seeing who you are. Are you passionate? Are you confident? Are you giving and generous to others? Are you a loving person? Are you kind? Those kinds of words can become very powerful intentions to set up a framework of really how you want to show up and how you want to be. And then your work, your personal life, everything needs to align with that intention, that bigger intention of really who you are at your core, at your source. And the 3 minutes to de-stress is actually, I call it a productivity pause, but it's a meditation technique. And just by taking that time to be quiet, it allows your inner source, your real essence, your authentic self to bubble up. And so you can really begin to identify who you are. I think sometimes when we get so focused on our work goals, we lose ourselves, and we lose all of the things that we've chosen to surround ourselves with, family and friends and all of those wonderful human things, but we don't spend time with them because we're so focused on the work and the success and that path that we've chosen. We're not seeing the whole picture. And intention helps you develop a whole life.
Yeah, this sounds very familiar, and it's actually an excellent segue into next week's episode where we have Steve Olsher on. And he's talking a lot about understanding what it is. So he talks about the what, not the why. And it's very much similar to what you just said, like understanding what is the reason you're doing the things you're doing. So, is it because you're a leader? Is it because you're compassionate? And we talk a lot about the fact that I'm a motivator and I'm a leader. So, if I'm not doing those things in my life and in my business, I don't feel whole. That's what I'm good at. And that's what I get a lot of, I guess, satisfaction and a lot of, like, it fills me up. I don't know what the right word is, when I can help other people to be what, to move towards what they want to be. And it doesn't matter if it's a business thing or if it's just, running an extra couple of kilometers. Like I love being the cheerleader, but I also love being the person who will give you the straight talking advice. And so if you want, I was going to say, if you want the fluffy, cuddly person, I can give you someone else for that.
Right. And I think it's so important for people to understand that there are people like you and like me who, my intention with so many people is to really help them release all struggles so they can really connect to their own power and to be able to really supercharge their lives. And that's kind of my theme, because I think too many people feel trapped or set boundaries that aren't real. They're the old stories that they're living their lives by, and they're myths, and it's holding them back from really being able to be in their greatness. And that's what I think is so important to help people achieve.
Yeah, those stories, inside of our, we have a membership site called the Retail Academy, and we actually talk a lot about how lots of people set this year's goals based on last year. So they base everything that's going to happen on what's happened in the past. And this is where we get stuck in this like linear growth. I want 30% growth. And the concept of 300% growth it's too big to understand, because it's like, well, if I made $300,000 last year, I can't make $1 million next year. Like it's just physically not possible. Exactly. Why not? So our whole month, we are actually talking about what I like to call exponential growth, and how you can actually achieve that if you break free of the shackles of the past. Doesn't matter what you made last year. All you have to take is the learnings of potentially what things didn't work and what needs to be tweaked and how you can change those around. And it's funny because that happened to me. Oh, go.
No, no, I don't want to interrupt your story, but I was just going to sort of share another technique for doing that is really visioning, being able to create a vision of how you see what can be manifest and not worry about how you're going to get there.
That's
Just
so
allow
true.
it to come up. Right.
Yep.
Because if you can imagine, it can happen, it can evolve. If you limit yourself, then you're stopping all the
Yeah.
possibilities and you're holding yourself back.
And it is so true because the previous year I had done, I listened to a bunch of goal setting podcasts and I pulled out the ones I thought were the best and I sat down and I was like, right, if I want to work this, I want to work this many hours and I want to make this much money. So then I'm going to have to sell this many coaching packages and this many courses and this many this and this many that. And of course it didn't happen. And it got to the end of the year and I was like, well, that didn't work. But then when I threw all of that away and I started focusing on, you know what, I only want to work 5 hours a day. And I pack a lot into 5 hours. I pretty much work 5 hours nonstop, but that's my choice, right? Because I want the rest of the day for free. And who I want to work with. So over on just above my computer over there's a list of all the qualities of the people that I like to work with. So when I started it seems really weird, but when I started to get really picky about who I was prepared to take on and not just taking clients for the money, we do that even in retail. We take customers because we need the sales, when in actual fact, you just think, oh my goodness, I wish I could refund that person and never have to deal with them again because they always make more effort, they're more effort than they're worth. But it's funny that when you actually get rid of how am I going to do it? And I do kind of feel you have to have some basis. You can't just say I'm going to make $1 million and then hope it happens. You still got to take some action.
Right. Absolutely. You have to put one foot in front of the other, but it's also letting go of that lack mentality,
Yeah.
that deficiency of I just don't have enough, I want more, or, this is what I need to do. And it's really coming back to that holistic, in a way, approach to your life. And I think that's so wonderful that you carved out what was really priority to you. And working 5 hours a day, it actually allows you to be more effective and efficient. If you work 10 hours, you probably wouldn't accomplish as much. And
No.
that's what I found through, again, using these calming techniques and these distressing techniques. It allows you to actually be more productive and be able to do more and enjoy it more. I think when we just get into the hustle, we lose that ability to really be joyful and to really be in the experience of what we're creating. We're so overwhelmed by it that we can't enjoy it. And I think it's so important to have the joy and choose. Wait, I only want to work 5 hours. I don't want to work with those, that particular personality. Yeah. And actually, it's really interesting. Jim Rohn, who was one of Tony Robbins' first mentors, once said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. So if you want hyper success, make sure those 5 people you spend time around are hyper successful. Those habits and those influences will help you be whatever it is in your heart and what drives you.
That is so, so true. I want to let's go back to the intention setting, because a lot of people are going to, I think, fall into the trap of saying things like, I am successful, I make lots of money, I have a big house, like whatever the accoutrements, as you like to call them, are what they're focusing on right now. But so can you give us some guidelines for the linear people like me?
with intentions, it's never about, if I have a big house, I am successful. These are all kind of endpoints. So an intention really has no end. It's the journey. And so you want to stay in alignment, whatever it is, again, how you want to show up. Like I, every day, like to have these little words that come up that remind me that I'm passionate, I'm purposeful, and I'm peaceful. And so the things that I choose to do have to stay in alignment with that, or I'm not being true to myself, and I'm not functioning at my peak as I could be. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's finding those type of core values that are really your authentic self, who you truly are, and using those to establish your intention, knowing that it's the journey. It's not the end point. It's not like you're getting anywhere. Don't be in a hurry. be where you are and set that bigger sort of global feeling of how you want to function every day, every minute.
And do you really think that when people do this, even though I've just shared my story, and obviously you've got some stories as well, do you think that just setting that intention of being the kind of person that you want to be can make such a difference when it comes to being successful, making more money, growing your empire, if that's the way you want to look at it, to the point where you feel like you've made it, I guess?
Absolutely. I think it's honoring you and staying on that path to be the best you can be. So for instance, I have a client who has a bit of an anger management issue, and he owns a bookstore. And so sometimes he'll have customers who are a bit irritating, and he goes into anger mode. What does that achieve? It's not in alignment with really how he wants to show up. It's not in alignment with how he wants to treat his customers. It accomplishes nothing except diffusing his energies in a very unproductive way. So he's beginning to learn how to sort of slow down, take a breath, and be mindful of that moment. And here's the key, is really being aware of responses. So his has been reactions where he just gets all upset and angry about it, instead of just responding to this really irritating person in a way that's more productive. And so we can all become more creative by thinking that way and changing our reactive mode to be more of an observer, be witness of what's happening. And by doing that, and again, staying in alignment with our intention, absolutely, it's more effortless. We're more innovative. We tap into more of our creativity because we're more relaxed. We don't get all emotional and angered and upset and irritated. It may come for a moment or two until we learn how to pattern it differently. But by doing that, it just allows us to really soar. And it's fun. It makes it a whole different experience instead of having the angst of it.
The angst,
we're
yeah.
able to really move through it.
That's the word. That's the exact word I was thinking too. And I think what people have to realize here, because it's easy to get, I don't know, to think this is very esoterical and fluffy and how can just setting an intention change my mind. But I think you also then just gave us the scientific part, which is actually, if you know what that intention is, you can adapt the way that you react to situations, because we all know those customers. And what I have found in my many, many years of retail is generally the customer who gets angry at you, it has nothing to do with you. There is some other stuff going on in their life, and you just happen to be the easiest person to take it out on.
Well, and that's it. That you've triggered something in them, and now they've triggered something in you. But the key to this is, it doesn't happen overnight. It's kind of like a muscle that you have to work out and you have to activate, because we literally have these neural pathways in our brains which tend to become grooved like habits, and we keep defaulting back to that anger habit rather than defaulting to, oh wait, I'm angry, but I'm noticing I'm angry. I'm going to interrupt that moment. I'm going to change it. And you have to keep practicing that. And that's when you become successful at it. And life becomes much more effortless. You're not in conflict, and things are accomplished much more quickly. And so you can do amazing things in just a few hours.
I think that
it would take days.
Yeah, I think if you are in alignment, then what happens is you attract more great people. That's what I've found. So when I got really clear on and I'm not saying it happened overnight, guys. It's easy to lose the faith. It took probably 6 months of being really intentional and turning away the clients that I knew were going to be a pain in the ass, even though, I really could have done with the money. And then it all just came flooding in, like all the good stuff, just to the point where I was like, oh my God, I don't have any more space left for anybody. Everything's full.
And I feel like it takes some experimentation to try it, because it's really hard to hear what we're saying. and to believe it when you're in the middle of a crisis and, oh, they don't know what I'm going through.
Yes.
But when you take little steps and you try this, it's really like magic. It starts shifting everything and you enter a different paradigm. And it's really transformational. Just start with a step though. And it's the
Just
beginning
one.
of the year. It's a good time to just begin with a different mindset. And I actually have created a whole set of, I call them I am happy now mugs. And inside the lip of each of these, as you drink them, I have one here actually that I'm drinking my evening coffee. And so on the outside, it says I am happy now. And inside I have words. So as you're drinking it, you're seeing, oh, inspired, serene. Ah, and if you're inspired, serene, you're happy now. So it sounds silly until you do it. And
Yeah.
the more you do it, the more you suddenly realize that there's a response physiologically in your body as you think words, inspired, serene. If you think words, anger, hate, just think about that, both of those words and how that makes you feel and
Yeah.
your reaction to them.
Yeah.
And then think love, peace. And there's a vibrational impact of these words that have a clear response in our bodies and our minds. So it's really powerful what you can do. There's been lots of studies on this scientifically as well, but again, I don't want to take the time to go through all of that, but I find it really fascinating how much power we have that we don't realize. And that's a
This,
lot of what I try to teach my clients.
before we finish up, I just want to give you one teeny tiny example. So my daughter is 10. She has this obsession with collecting paint chips, you know, the little color cards of paint.
Uh-huh.
She literally has a whole wall of them behind her bed, all color coordinated. But the other day she said, oh, I got this book and it's got quotes in it. And so she started writing quotes on the paint chips. And I said to her, well, the quotes are great, but did you actually pay attention to them? And she said, yeah, I feel really nice writing them. I feel really calm and it makes me happy when I write them. So she's actually absorbing them as she's writing them. But, you know, when you're 10, you don't understand, you don't have all that stuff hanging down on you. So when she said that to me and then you were just talking about it, it was only just last night. And when she said it, I was like, there you go. If a 10-year-old can feel more peaceful and more calm and happy just writing quotes on the wall, then it's the thoughts, right?
It is the thoughts. We manifest what we think. And so many of us have these self-sabotaging thoughts or these negative thoughts, and we don't even realize we're doing it.
Yeah.
So when you begin to become aware of, you're thinking, oh, I can't do that, or I can't accomplish that next year, you're actually shutting down your innate abilities that are all there. You're not tapping into them. So
Yeah.
you can change that. You can change it by changing the mindset, setting
I
an
think
intention, words, doing breath, deep breathing, doing some meditation. It all contributes.
I think that's the perfect point where we should just finish up and say, if this sounds too woo-woo for you, I think you should still give it a try. But even if you do nothing else, I love the concept of the 3 minutes. So you've got a free download. What was the website again?
3 minutes to destress.com, and it's the numeral 3.
Numeral 3. Okay. So if you do nothing else, head on over to 3minutes-to-destress.com, download Peggy's little 3-minute audio and just give this a try. If this is the one thing you do for the month of January, that a couple of times a day, you just give yourself 3 months out, just give that a go. And if it changes, changes the way you feel, if it changes the way you work, if it changes the way that you behave, then maybe go on and look at the next steps of setting some intentions. But really, what's it going to hurt to set some intentions? It doesn't cost anything. You don't have to go and buy a course. All you have to do is feel good about how you want to show up in life.
And giving yourself permission to feel good. A lot of times, again, the hustle takes us into a place of just stress, and we don't take time for ourselves to just feel good.
So if people want to buy your mugs, or if they want to learn more about you, would they find that at 3minutes-to-destress.com, or should we send them somewhere else?
They can get to it there. My food boot camp is on the programs list, and IamHappyNow.com is where my mugs are, and most of the information is available through the 3 minutes to de-stress link. It'll take you into my website. So, and I have lots of free material there that can be very helpful. And again, I encourage people, just try it. Just try it a few times, see how you feel. Really take a moment after to notice, wait, I do feel more relaxed.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it costs nothing. It hurts no one. So give it a try, because the only thing that can happen is you will live a much better life.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Peggy. And I'll pop all the links to Peggy's resources into the show notes.
Lovely. And thank you for having me here. I've enjoyed being with you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.